Hey, I'm Nathaniel. So finally, the band Bring Me the Horizon has released their 7th studio album, NeX GEn. And so with all of the waiting and the anticipation following their widely praised previous release, Post-Human Survival Horror, does this new album live up to all the expectations and hype from fans? Just to give a bit of context, back in 2020 during COVID, the band said that they would release 4 EPs within about a year, which would all be thematically connected as being sort of chapters in the Post-Human series, and with each EP being a different genre, and the first release was Post-Human Survival Horror, which came out October 30th, 2020. But the release date for the second EP kept getting pushed back, as maybe they overestimated their ability to finish all the music so quickly with the COVID lockdowns ending and with their touring schedule. And then Jordan Fish, who was an important creative part of the band, left the band in 2023, which likely affected the making of the release. And at some point, probably because of how long it was taking to come out, but also because of how many singles had already been released. The planned EP instead became an album, and after several years of fans waiting, the band basically surprise released this album titled Post-Human NeX GEn on May 24th, 2024, only announcing its release the previous day. One thing I appreciate about this band, and why I think that they've been arguably one of the most influential rock bands of the last 10 years, is how that every album that the band releases seems to push the band in a new direction that is different from their past albums. And the band certainly experiment with a lot of different sounds on this album, seemingly being influenced by a number of different styles and artists, and also incorporating influences like hyperpop as well as pop punk, and depending on how you define it, also emo. And then also being influenced by post-hardcore and also electronic music and even industrial music, along with the band's typical metalcore, nu metal, and other metal influences. With its various influences and sounds blending catchy pop-influenced melodies and big sing-along choruses with metal riffs, breakdowns, and screaming, and also with weirder and more experimental parts, this album seemingly has a little bit of something for everyone, I feel like. Although I could see some fans potentially being a bit disappointed if they're mainly interested in only one aspect of the band's sound. And the album is surprisingly cohesive in its sound despite blending all these influences together, as I feel like they are blended together well, at least for the most part. Then also, Ollie Sykes' vocal delivery is great as always, and he's also written some catchy hooks and great anthemic choruses for the album, with a good example of this I think being the singles Lost and Die For You, both of which I think are very catchy and make perfect sense as singles for the album. Although personally I feel like the chorus for Strangers was just kind of uninteresting and bland. And I actually feel this way about a number of songs on the album, where I feel like the melodies are just not quite as creative as some of their past songs in my view. But I do like that the structures for a lot of the songs seems to be unpredictable and not very formulaic. And I was also previously concerned about the production on the album when Jordan left, given that he had been a significant contributor to the band's music and to their production since he joined the band during the making of the album Sempiternal. But in my opinion, the production for the album is just as good and interesting as it's ever been for the band. And I see that he's only credited for about half the songs on the album, and this seems to support the idea that Ollie Sykes is really the driving creative force for the band, although that's not to take away from Jordan's contributions or Lee's contributions or any other band members' contributions. And also I'm a fan of when albums have a general theme or a story, and Post-Human NeX GEn is a concept album and it's connected to Post-Human Survival Horror, and it does share its futuristic cyberpunk themes and aesthetics, transhumanism, and a bleak outlook for humanity, and also covers themes relating to AI, cults, and religion, and I think the overall concept is kind of cool and interesting. It also seems to have some scene culture aesthetics with the way the song titles are written, which I assume is connected to the aspects of the album which seem to be a bit of a throwback to the pop-punk, post-hardcore, and metalcore scenes of the 2000s, although it is also combined with some more modern sounds. And I think a great example of this being done well is the song A Bullet in My Name On, featuring the band Underoath, where it sounds kind of similar to their mid-2000s post-hardcore sound, but also blends elements of hyperpop. Despite the overall concept of the album and occasional direct references to it, many of the lyrics on the album are rather introspective, and deal with similar themes to past albums by the band, like drugs and addiction and other mental health related issues. And I understand that plenty of fans seem to like his lyrics and relate to them, but I have to admit that personally the way that Ollie writes has never really appealed to me all that much. And I've personally found a lot of his lyrics to be just kind of cliche and uninteresting, and I feel the same way for the lyrics on this album. And I kind of wish that they'd included a couple more songs with some softer parts to kind of balance out all of the aggression and chaos on the album. Although maybe I'm just getting old and that kind of music just doesn't really appeal to me as much as it used to, I don't know. And as I said before, that while I do think that this album does have some really good and catchy choruses, overall I feel like they've written better melodies in the past, and the similar production style throughout much of the album to me just kind of makes a lot of the songs sound kind of similar to each other, and consequently they don't stand out all that much. So my rating of this album is a 7 out of 10. Personally, I think it's a good album overall and mostly lives up to the hype. although at least for now I'm not currently quite sold on it being a great album. It has a hyperpop influenced production style that is interesting, varied, and unique, and the album manages to be sonically consistent despite combining many different styles of music together, and it's a nice step forward for the band while also managing to maintain the distinct and influential Bring Me the Horizon sound that they've developed over the years, all while managing to also be an intriguing concept album. And I think it's got some good songs on it with great hooks, great blending of familiar and throwback sounds with newer sounds, and some great experimentation such as Dig It, my personal favorite off the album, Utopia, A Bullet With My Name On, Die For You, and Lost. However, as I mentioned, I feel like some of the songs can sound a little bit samey and lacking in identity. And it's also true, though, that past albums by the band have tended to grow on me over time, and so it's certainly possible that in the future my opinion could change as I listen to it more. Alright, well, thank you so much for watching, and if you like this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing to my channel if you'd like to see more reviews and content like this. And then also please leave a comment if you'd like to share your thoughts about the new album or about the band and whether you agree or disagree with my review. Alright, well, thanks again, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye.